When I was a child, we traveled to Iowa every summer. Now, a trek from Georgia, where I grew up, to Iowa is a total of 14 hours by car. It's a long drive. But we did this because most of my dad's side of the family lived in Iowa. And so every 4th of July, we would head up there. And it was summertime in Iowa. It was gorgeous. Usually 75. We loved it. And what we loved most was spending time with our grandparents and great-grandparents. We would spend time at Grammy and Papa's house eating lime jello with canned pears, catching fireflies, riding the red radio flyer wagon down the grassy hill, and walking through town next to the Des Moines River. Then we'd go over to my great-grandmother's house, Grammy G and Papa Peck, and we would pit cherries that we had picked at Cousin Mary's. We would bake pies, play ball in the backyard, climb Grammy G's trees. It was a time that I always cherished. And it was a place that I absolutely called home, even though we only spent a week or so there every year. Did you have any places like that growing up? Places that just live in your mind as a place of happiness. Maybe places where you take your kids now, or where your grandkids come and visit you. There are a few places like this in my life, places where we didn't live, but where I felt welcomed and loved, secure and at home. Today is Good Shepherd Sunday, and we expect to hear about the shepherd caring for her flock. We know that sheep wander and are vulnerable. We know the shepherd cares for them, guiding them to green pastures, protecting them through dangerous valleys. But this week I heard something different, something that I don't usually hear when I hear the 23rd Psalm or the stories of the Good Shepherd, though it is most certainly true as well. At the end of our psalm, the psalmist cries, "Surely God's goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." I don't know about you, but I often skip over that last phrase, "I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." It's a phrase that we hear often in the Psalms, so it doesn't feel like it belongs to shepherds in particular. But if you think about it, it is especially true of shepherds. They guide their sheep out to pastures to graze, but they always bring them home again. In that pattern of steady care, the sheep begin to feel at home, not just in the barn, but anywhere the shepherd goes. It's not only a place, but a person that provides that sense of home and security, like it was with my grandparents and my great-grandparents growing up. It wasn't just the homes that I loved as a kid, it was the people that were in them. So it is with God. As we go through hard times in our lives, when we feel unsteady or exhausted, when we grieve or are in pain, our shepherd stays with us, leading and guiding us through the worst of it. And though the destination is home, God as our shepherd provides that sense of home for us, no matter where we are, because we know that God's presence with us is security and belonging. The shepherd always cares for her sheep. I grew up in church, and when I was little, Mom and Dad did a lot of volunteer work at the church, so I was often there. And because of that, the church also felt like home. My brothers and I would run around the fellowship hall and through the darkened hallways. When Dad practiced in the praise band, we would crawl under the pews. Mom and Dad sometimes told us to settle down, but others in the church never minded it. And so I still have a sense of security and belonging attached to that church. Sometime when I was in middle school, our church bought and moved to a new building. The youth were invited to write on the walls before they were painted, like I know many of you were for this building. And so we were poised to settle into this new building as comfortably as the old one. But I remember at one of our first lock-ins in the new building, we played sardines, which is kind of tag almost, hide and seek. And we hid in a closet all together, crushing in. And I remember after that, some adults coming to us and chewing us out for packing inside this closet and getting paint dust on the floor of the new building. I don't even know how that happens. But the adults were angry about the dust. And that experience stuck in my mind. The new building never felt as much of a home as the old one did, because the adults had told us in that chewing out that the building was more important than we were. I tell you this story because we have the chance to join in with the Good Shepherd and provide that sense of security and belonging. Now, I know the adults in my church didn't mean that. They adored us. But that is the message that came to us anyway. And so we can provide that sense of security and belonging, or we can put something other than the sheep first in our minds. Whether that is a building or a worship experience or something else entirely. Our words and attitudes matter deeply. So during Easter, we move through the first letter of John. And I love this letter because you can hear how much the author cares for those he's addressing. And it also encourages us to extend that same level of care to each other. The letter takes the command to love one another very seriously, encouraging us again and again to love deeply and truly. And I love that when I step into this church, I can see that happening. I love walking into services on Sundays just like this morning and hearing the buzz of conversation so loud that I have to shout, "Good morning," to get everyone to sit down. It tells me that this is a place where people are known. I love that we have a contingent of youth who help with coffee hour, who acolyte, who do all sorts of things around the church. It tells me that we value our youth. I love when I see members giving others rides to the service. It tells me we don't want to miss out on being together. I love when I see children chasing each other through the halls, because it tells me the next generation is comfortable here already. May this church be one of those places that you think about and smile. A place where we feel secure, where we belong, a place where we feel loved. Amen.